Bruno Fernandes has dropped a departure hint from Manchester United. Welcome to the United Sport. My name is Webb. Here is a new update coming through from decent sources. The Telegraph has written that Bruno Fernandes has dropped a hint of departing Manchester United because he doesn't seem to be happy. Not because he's not getting playing time. I think no one has got more playing time than him since he joined Manchester United 4 years ago. But he has got 2 years left on his contract with an option of a further 1 year. But imagine he's not happy. The captain of Manchester United is not happy. Why? Here's the talk. Subscribe to the United Hotspot and let's get into this Bruno Fernandes talk. Now, you know that INEOS recently came out and revealed that they will be listening to offers to all but 3 players. Now, these were the youngsters, Kobe Maino, Alejandro Garnacho, and Rasmus Højlund. Now, Bruno Fernandes seemed not to be moved or happy by that statement, considering how much he has put in at the club, how well he's been performing. He was promoted to captain. He thought probably he was one of those, untouchables at the club, but INEOS don't seem to think so. Whereas INEOS have expressed that they will not exactly be looking to, sell Bruno, Andre Onana, and Diogo Dalot. They are also partly important. They will listen to any offers. Now, this is not good enough for Bruno. He doesn't feel wanted. So, in his interview, he seemed to allude to the fact that him staying is not entirely dependent on him. It's of course he knows that the situation the club is in is not good. How he has performed as an individual, well, whereas he has scored so many goals and assisted so many, he doesn't feel he has performed to his expectations as an individual. But also the club at all or the team is not performing as the captain would have loved it to be. So he understands if INEOS or the club does not want him. So he says staying at Manchester United is not entirely up to him. Now, this seem to hint that he does not really feel important. I mean, if you read between the lines, the undertones, and that's what you pick from this, report from the Telegraph. They seem to pick it from him that he doesn't really feel wanted by Manchester United. Listen, Bruno is 29 years of age, and INEOS have made it clear that they don't want to keep old players anymore. They feel like if a player is aging, even if they are good, if they can get good money out of them, that's how they are going to do business. Remember, one of the top targets of Sir Jim Ratcliffe is to have a money-making footballing department that is in charge. Whereas he's just going to be in charge, he's going to be in charge of the football. He says he wants the football to make money, meaning buy players, sell them. Bruno was bought for 47 million pounds, and he has played for 4 seasons, 4 good seasons he has given. But do you expect him at 29 to give you anything better? How about to sell him now because he can still command a decent fee? That's what Ineos is saying. That's the argument that if we get someone who can even match his 47 million that you bought him for years ago, because if you look at Bruno right now and his stats, he's a player who can command in this market 50 million pounds, honestly, even more. So Ineos are saying if we get someone who is giving us that, we will listen and sell him because he's 29 and groom young players to come and replace him. Now, of course, certain United supporters will be going, how do you sell Bruno? That wouldn't be smart. But if you think about it, in terms of business, it makes sense because Manchester United does not have so many players who can be sold for reasonable money, yet the club needs money to run and keep getting other younger, good players. The biggest issue that United has got is with the squad and long contracts of so many players who have got no value. So a player like Bruno has some bit of value. I think he's one of the most valuable players of all those we're willing to sell. He's probably the most valuable. So why not sell him now? Because if we keep him around in 2-3 years, Bruno is going to be over 32, 33. But for a footballer, that's old. You're in the evening of your career. So United are saying, why not let him go now? He still has got a good contract going on. 2 years left with an option of a further 1 year. So you've got him for about 3 years. He's playing his best football. There are clubs that can pay good money for him. I think about it and I feel it's not really the worst of things to do. But also, honestly, whereas Bruno is a very good player, he has been the better of the lot. He has been an important player for United for consistently. He has been putting in the hard yards. We love him. Honestly, there are games we've watched him and we've gone, he's not good enough. Some performances have not been good enough. There are performances that did not really look so exciting that you feel he's not a Kobe, he's not an untouchable player. That for me, it doesn't really, uh, you, you know, you know, uh, give me lots of sleepless nights. If he goes, he wouldn't give me lots of sleepless nights. So that's the situation we're in. But also, there are people who feel that the presence of Bruno is what is blocking the progress of the young guy, Mason Mount. And remember, Mason Mount is a new signing, and he has got to be given a chance to fail or to perform for Man United. So we cannot sell him now. So you look at it and thinking, if you look at all that and there is money on the table, that makes sense. I think I would partly side with INEOS if they decide to sell Bruno. So that's where we are. It's a tricky situation if you think about it critically. It's a bit tricky because again, you don't want to sell all players and leave on the young players or even new players in the club, especially if you have a player who has already proved that he can be a leader. Well, of course, there are people who are not so contented with his leadership and the morning, but those are things someone can improve. But also that's his personality. Maybe it can be used to him and his style. But there are people who are not exactly moved by Bruno being captain. But the reality is his seniority is important in the team because he's the kind of player who lifts everyone around him. And he has been described to be as a team captain, loved by everyone. He's greeting everyone. Even I got a chance to get a selfie in his car with him, picking my phone and taking a selfie with him. So he's a personality that you think brings the club and the staff and the bit of the fans together. But if you think about it beyond that, think about the football and the continuity, the future of the club, and you're thinking he's not an untouchable. He can leave if the offer makes sense. So that's where INEOS is. Remember, there is a new CEO now, an interim CEO, and this is why he has been brought in early so that by the time Omar Berada comes, these decisions are already made. Is Bruno staying? And it's high chances are if Eric Ten Hag doesn't stay, Bruno most likely won't stay because there are not so many managers around football, I believe, who would choose Bruno as captain. But I also don't imagine Bruno, if United, for any reason, got a new manager and they came in, and then again, Bruno is stripped of captaincy, but he stays there, it still wouldn't make sense. Bruno is a he wasn't signed by Eric Ten Hag, but he has, I think, grown to be one of the favorites of Eric Ten Hag. That it's easy to identify him with Eric Ten Hag. And you're thinking, if Eric Ten Hag is to leave, Bruno could leave. So for me, what this statement also showed me is that perhaps INEOS are contemplating letting go of Eric Ten Hag because even these players will know. A player like Bruno would know. He's a captain. He's mature enough to read between the lines and know and tell whether Eric Ten Hag is staying or not. They can know. They can tell. They are not daft players. They should have the reasoning capacity to think and know that this manager is going or not. So the future of Bruno is something we will follow. Whereas he's a good player, important player, guys, he's 29, let's not forget it, and he's still got 2 years. So it's an opportunity for us to sell him now when he's still performing well, and we can still get some good money out of him. Guys, I told you the Manchester United conundrum is probably the hardest chess game in the history of football, if you know what I mean. It's the hardest chess game in the history of football. The situation now to do with cleaning Manchester United, what the job INEOS has got to do now might be the hardest end game in the history of chess and football. So let's wait and see how these guys, Jean Claude Blanc, and of course later on Omar Berada and INEOS and the entire team will play it out. But it seems they now have a proper idea of where they want to go and what bold decisions they are willing to make. Honestly, letting go of Bruno for me would show me that this club is changing because that is a bold statement to make, but it makes sense if you make that decision now. All of us have felt it at some point that actually at some point Bruno should have been benched in certain games. We've all felt it at some point. But that doesn't take away the fact that he has been a very good player for Manchester United consistently for the 4 years he's been there. He has shown the heart for the club. He's a professional. I think he's one of the few professionals in this bunch of non-professionals at Manchester United. So there's positives about him, but he's a sacrifice. At times, when the times are hard, you've got to make sacrifices. And Bruno looks like he is going to be the first or one of the first INEOS sacrifices. But who then would come in place for him or who would take him? That will keep following here on the United Hotspot. Subscribe. I'll catch you later.